Yeah, there's a good thing about it. I mean, day one, like I said, is you don't usually change the intensity of the things you do. Obviously, as you go further on in camp, you got to be able to match the things, that you start. And so for day one, I thought great intensity. I thought, the attention to detail, the tempo, the speed of what it is we were looking for was there. And the competitive spirit is what you always really, really want to see as much as anything. And for no pads, the competitive spirit was very, very good. And so I think that's a great reflection on leadership. And I think we've got a unique crew of guys that have taken this leadership to a different level and really want to set a tone and a tempo for the things that they expect.
Right. You mentioned, I believe that in Milwaukee last month, like your top group guys have all played quite a bit, especially on offense. That second, third crew hasn't seen a whole lot of that action. Like, how do you think how big is spring for them to start kind of getting it under the belt? Like, all right, this is what the tempo of practice is, but you're kind of looked to as one of these guys.
It's big because that's the development of your program. And if you can't go in 3 groups in the spring, it really makes it difficult. And so you get a little bit thin on the offensive line, which makes it difficult to develop some of those younger quarterbacks. The 1 and the 2 quarterback, and even if they roll in the difference with the ones, they're going to get some really good looks. They're going to get some things in front of them. It's the younger ones that have got to develop. It's the younger ones that have got to compete, and they've got to give us an opportunity to be able to play with those 3 groups because we need a lot of reps. And the only way you can do that is if you can basically up front, you can give those guys opportunities, and especially for the young quarterbacks.
Not only new players, but new faces on this staff too. How excited were you, and how excited were they for their first practice?
I think that the last 2.5 weeks where we kind of did what we call OTAs and do a mock-up of these things has made them, I think, less anxiety to get out here to know what to expect. But I think that all of us were kind of, really excited about, year 2. And whether there's some new faces in there, whether they're players or coaches, the uniqueness is how you kind of fit this thing all together. And so these days you got to go through, not just as players, but as coaches. We got to go back up, we got to hammer things out when we watch the film, and then we learn a lot more about ourselves and each other.
Going off of that too, I mean, I guess kind of a full year under the belt for you and some Chief. What did you learn the most about yourself over this period?
I think it's ever growing. You think you've got some ideas of what it needs to look like, or what your staff looks like, or the things you got to do, and you recognize that, man, this game is evolving. This game is ever changing. And I don't just mean the game on the field, I mean the game outside the field, whether it's recruiting, whether it's just a mix of coaches, and how do you keep those things going all in the right direction. It's like parenting, right? It never ends. You can't sleep on it, and it's constantly continuing to grow and change.
Going off to that, was there anything in the first year anything that you saw that kind of made you tackle the offseason differently from this year?
I just think that as we got into it, the nature of our culture needed to, have some adjustments, I said. So after the last game, we kind of came in and said, look, okay, we've done a great job at embracing everything since we've been here. You guys have done a great job at embracing, us as coaches. And, there's a reality. We're going to shake some things up now. We're going to kind of shake the culture up. We're going to continue to do the things we need to do, but we're going to create some more competitive situations and competitive spirit to make everybody a little bit on edge. And I didn't want people to take that the wrong way, whether we were bringing in another middle linebacker or bringing in another, quarterback. The reality was I was one of those guys to recognize that we all have got to continue to move forward, and the greatest way we can do that is by creating some competition. And so I think we've done that, and now we've got to take it to the field here to see how that competitive spirit continues to grow.
I know you're one that always says, like, don't read too much into reps, but we saw Tyler and Braden kind of splitting the what we would assume is the one offense. Like, you talk about guys accepting that challenge of maybe a new competitor in your room. Like, has Braden done that as well as you would have hoped?
He has, and they'll continue to roll in a lot of those situations. And for us, we've got to give those other guys some opportunities as well. And sometimes by letting those guys roll with the ones, it gives the Knicks and the rest of the crew some opportunities to roll with the 2s as well. And we've got a young freshman kid, Neighbor, who's here, who needs to get reps, and Nick Evers, who's been here for another year, who needs to get reps. And so we've got to be able to throw those guys in, not just with the 3 crew, because there is a different look to what you're doing, but in there with the 2s as well.
I'd say, but talking about, I know again, just first day, but saw Austin Brown in the slot a little bit. what do you like about him there? Do you foresee? I know it's again just the first 15, but do you see others like a Max Lofi or even like I know RJ Delancey possibly moving into it too?
No, well, I mean, we'll see, but I think that kind of the way we went towards the bowl game when we put in the slot a bigger guy. I mean, that's what you love about Austin. You look out there and you got a guy that's 6'1", 6'2", 210, 215 pounds. That's different than a lot of nickelbacks that we had in the past played with. And Max is kind of that way too. He's a guy that was a corner, was a nickel, but that position has grown a little bit in the sense that we want guys who are a little bit more physical, guys that can, provide some different things as opposed to just, sometimes what a nickel does is just cover. And so I think that's allowed us to figure out what we've got and how do we evolve with the people that we got.
And so it's also the recruiting. Obviously, spring practice validators, a few recruits here, but just what do you, as a staff, what do you hope to get out of it in terms of having these recruits here? But then vice versa, what do you hope the recruits take away from these spring visits?
I hope that they come in here and they get a good sense of what the culture and the environment's really like. Right? If you don't love to compete, if you don't love to put it out on the line, if you don't say, well, that's a non-padded practice, how do you guys do something? Like, if that's not what you love, then this probably isn't going to be the right place for you. And so it's great to have guys here. We don't get as many opportunities because you practice in the morning and these kids actually have to go to school. So Saturdays are the time when we usually get more guys here, some of those high school guys. But this time where there's a lot of spring breaks, we get opportunity to get guys here. They can see us in the action. They can see what our program's really, really like, not just what we've talked about or what we've done on a Zoom call. I want them to see and feel the real us to see if this is the right place for them.
How have you seen the change of recruiting? I mean, during your days at Cincinnati since you came here, you just kind of the constant evolving of recruiting?
Well, I just think it's a little bit sooner and sooner and sooner. Kids are developing more. Kids are, out and about more. You can visit earlier unofficially. So it's just making everything kind of accelerate. So for us as coaches, you got to do a better job. It's easy to watch the film and kind of see what you see, but to find the right ones, to find out what's really deep down inside that, I mean, you're having to make some decisions at a lot younger age for them. You don't get to watch them kind of grow and play as a 17 or 18-year-old in high school. You're making decisions off their sophomore and junior film. So I think it puts a little bit more pressure on us to make sure we're doing our due diligence and not just taking what rivals or somebody else says about a kid. Get him here, get to know him, get to know the family, gives you a better indication of what you're going to get in the future.
One of the changes that came about in this offseason was the ability for you guys as coaches and seeing radio in the helmet. Saw some of that today.
I don't know much about it yet. Well, it's day one.
No, I'm just asking, when you look at that possibility, I guess, what do you think it changes for you guys as a coaching staff? Or?
I don't know, because that's what we're trying to figure out. What's too much, what's not enough. I guess because the NFL does it, we're going to say it's our way of fixing some things that I think we just kind of brushed under the rug. But the reality is, I think all of us in college are trying to figure out how it's going to fit for us, especially being, up-tempo teams or not huddling teams. And you play against others that do the same thing. So I don't know that it takes away, what it takes away maybe in the NFL, but it's new and we're trying to figure it out.
You mentioned Mabry earlier, but guys like Kevin Gainwood, Lane Gauthier, early enrollees, just as your time as a former player and assistant and now coach, just how have you seen, when did the early enrollee process become prevalent? Do you remember exactly when?
No, I'm not sure. It's becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, we had 11 early enrollees. I think it's not going back the other direction. It's a great thing. I mean, it's a great thing for them to get into school. It's a great thing to get them into a program. After this day right here, probably their heads are going to be spinning more than they ever have since the day they walked in the door here. Just the nature of the speed of things as things continue to go for 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'd be curious to go ask them what they think right now. But we'll give them a little break and they'll regather themselves and come back and have to do it all over again.